Solomon is about to walk us through his neighborhood and make some observations for us. Imagine tonight that you were walking in downtown Andalusia or Montgomery or some other city that you're familiar with. And because there's nothing new under the sun, I think we'll see that everything he sees in his community, we could see in our community. The reason this book is so important is because these are real life circumstances that happen every day, every week, in every American city, not just in the Middle East. And when you see them, you have a response to them. He's giving us his response. Probably it would be our response were we to know the information that he's giving us. But he comes up with a summation that's his conclusion. We've got to listen and see if that would be our conclusion. And remember, everything is observed under the sun. God is not in the picture. When there's hardship with God in the picture, it's a different hardship. We look at it very, very differently. So Solomon is taking us through his neighborhood. We'll end in chapter 5 going into the worship assembly. We may not get there tonight, but we go into the worship assembly and some things are brought to bear, some conclusions there that are offered that can be of benefit to us. Ecclesiastes 4, verses 1 through 3, he takes us to a courtroom. We go into a courtroom. And he says, I saw the oppression that was taking place under the sun. God's not in the picture. I saw the tears of the oppressed, and they have no comforter. Ever known of someone who goes into a courtroom setting and there's just nothing that's going to turn out right for them? There's no one speaking on their behalf. There's no way they're going to get justice. Jesus talked about the need to pray, and he talked about the woman who went before a judge who neither loved God or cared about people. So Jesus acknowledged a circumstance similar, if you will. But he said, I saw the tears of the oppressed, and they have no comforter. Power was on the side of their oppressors, and they have no comforter. Now, what did he just tell us to be sure we get the point? That person has no one to comfort them. There's no one there to provide what they need. Power was on the side of the oppressor. I watch a lot of lawyer shows. It began a long, long time ago. I just enjoyed the lawyer shows most of my life. It began with Perry Mason. Still watch them occasionally. Power, money, you go to a courtroom situation and you just really don't stand a chance. Power is on the side of other people. You may not have the funds for the best lawyer in town or even the 3rd or 10th best. But power is there. It's on the side of those who are oppressing you in that setting. And there's no comforter. He tells us that twice. And I declare that the dead who had already died are happier than the living who are still alive. Now, that's an amazing statement, and yet maybe we've thought that before. I know a lot of young people in the last 10 and 15 years who've decided, I will not get married. I don't want to take the risk. I don't want to marry the wrong person. I don't want to have what looks like a perfect marriage and then it falls apart. So they would be better, they say to themselves, I would rather just not be married than to have to go through that. And Solomon is offering that conclusion here. It would be better if you have to go into a setting to where you're oppressed and there's absolutely no possibility of being comforted. His conclusion is it would be better if they'd never been born than to have to go through that. Happier, declare that the dead who had already died are happier than the living who are still alive. If they don't have to go through that, it's good for them. It's good for them. And happier than the living who are still alive because of that possibility coming up in their life. Now, I don't look at life that way. You don't either. We get up every day. We know that God cares about us. We know that God's in control, and we give Him that day. And we respond accordingly, trying to be an example, light, salt, leaven, and we try to make a difference in our world. We don't think this way because there are times when we would be in difficult situations that our light can shine and we can make a difference to other people. But Solomon's looking under the sun. He's looking under the sun without God. And when there's no hope for a comforter and power's on the side of the oppressor, he declares that those who have already died are happier than the living who are still alive, because they don't have to face that. And those who are alive maybe will. It may be something that they're having to contend with. But then he makes the conclusion, but better than both is he who has not yet been, who has not seen the evil that is under the sun. Now that's as negative a response as you could possibly come. It would be better if we had not been born, if we have to face evil in this world. And yet, what's the reality of that idea? Is there a guarantee that we will not face difficulties, even evil, in our lifetime many times? There's no guarantee, is there? So no one should ever be born? There should be no individuals alive upon earth? In his opinion, under the sun, it would just be better for them if they'd never been born. Now, what he's trying to make us think about is those are difficult situations. It's difficult to go through a time when all the power belongs to someone else. There's no opportunity for you to be comforted in that setting. And rather than have to go through life that way, it would be better not to have even been born. So there's 4 better statements in this chapter. Verse 3, better than both is he who has not yet been, who has not seen the evil that is done under the sun. Do any of us think that way? Do you believe there's some in this world who do think this way? Because God's not part of their life? They don't see the blessing, even if it is not until eternity? There are people who think this way. And it's people who just don't feel as if life is fair, that they're never going to be given a fair chance or the opportunity that others have. It's always someone else. It's always someone else in their mind. And so as we walk through Andalusia, as we walk through Montgomery, we can see circumstances like this. We might not come to this conclusion because we have God in our life. But there are people who do come to these conclusions. As we come upon them, this is therapeutic, if you will. It's training, counselor training. as we look at these three verses, as we come to realize that we may meet people like this, we may be living in the community and know people like this, we can wait. We may have to wait till next week. Solomon gives us a conclusion. It tells us what we can tell them. It instructs us how to help them who feel as if this is their plight in life. And that's the value of this book, among other things. Life is sometimes terrible. It's sometimes filled with evil, and we sometimes don't think we stand a chance. And we may think, or others may think, it'd be better if I'd never been born than to have to go through this. It would be better. Well, beginning with verse 4, he goes into the marketplace. He's going to look at people working in the marketplace. And I saw that all labor and all achievement springs from man's envy of his neighbor. This too is vanity or meaningless, chasing after the wind. This is describing for us an industrious person. He's going to describe someone that's willing to work hard. But he's telling us that sometimes our labor and our desire for achievement in our labor is to keep up with the Joneses. Ever heard that? It's our achievement, our envy of the neighbor. Why do we never get a new car? Why do other people always have the new car? Why haven't we moved recently to the bigger house? Why is everyone else doing so well and I'm in whatever place? Sometimes the motivation for what we do is envy of our neighbor. Keep up with the Joneses, to put a modern vernacular to it. Well, he looks first of all, verse 5, at the foolish man. He's the idle man. The fool folds his hands and ruins himself. The fool is not one willing to work. There's no envy on his part. The fool isn't willing to work. And what does that accomplish for him? He ruins himself. This translation. I forgot the other translation. Read me somebody verse 5. What does another translation say? He folds his hands and what? Eats at his own flesh. Yeah, I've forgotten which translation. He's just destroying himself. His lack of initiative, even if the other side is envy for your neighbor's achievements, that's not what we want. But the answer is not stopping in a desire to work. And he ruins himself. If you don't work, you don't have anything. There's nothing possible for your life. The other side's not what you want, but this is not the best side either. So he ruins himself. He says, better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. If you can work some and have some contentment, some tranquility in your life, that's better. Not having as much, not working as long. But some work, one hand, if it brings you tranquility, then two handfuls with toil, and you're just chasing after the wind. Now remember, we've already seen that work is toilsome, vanity, chasing after the wind. But God gives us the ability to enjoy the work. He gives us the talent, He gives us the opportunity, and we can find enjoyment in that. But He's going back to this general theme and applying it in a different way. Better than one handful with tranquility or contentment, depending on the translation, than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. No satisfaction, no appreciation, no whatever we would want out of hard work. There's a lot of mamas waiting to see who that is. Verse 7. Again, I saw something meaningless under the sun. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. I think I know what this is, but I know it will be taken care of. So here's a person without family, and he's working hard. Okay? There's no son, there's no brother, there's no end to his toil because he's working hard and it just is never going to end. And there's no contentment in his eyes. That which he sees, which he's accomplished, which he's gained, there's no contentment. And then we're told, and he's wealthy. So this is a wealthy person who works hard. He can never stop working. There's no brother. There's no son. The inference is to pass it down to. There's no family members to pass it down to. But he's not content, though he's got all kinds of wealth. For whom am I toiling, he asked. And why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? Take a few hours off occasionally. Reap the benefits of your wealth. Reap the enjoyment that could come from not working so hard and having the means to do that. I'll tell you an honesty about me, probably most of you. When I take a week vacation, it takes about a day and a half for me to fully just relax and leave the devices off and not be thinking about what I left behind and just totally enjoy it. Takes a little bit of time, especially if you're driving 10 hours to get there. Kind of takes a little bit of time to get over that as well. We're headed to South Florida in March. We're going to help take care of the kiddos during spring break. Our son will be in Bahrain. Our daughter-in-law is thrilled that we're going to be there to help her out a little bit so she can have a normal week with them out of school. But it'll take us a day or two just to relax and get into the motif of being grandparents with 3 children between 11 and 6. Just to relax. You've got the money, you've got the time if you'll take it, and you can't relax to enjoy it, to have the contentment for it. This too is vanity, a miserable business. Now, was Solomon intending to kick us in the shin or step on our toes when he forced us to see someone like this? If it strikes home, let it strike home. If this is describing you, let it have an impact. Don't be this person who is working too hard, not content, though he's got so much, and not able to enjoy the benefits of having all that hard work in your past. Well, he goes in verse 9 to the highway. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their work. If you've ever been in a situation, well, let me just describe what I was brought up. The congregation where Dad preached when we were growing up was a smaller congregation. And I remember then they announced we're having a work party Saturday at 9 o'clock. We need the men and women of the congregation to come. We're having a work party. We'll have lunch together and be through in plenty of time to go have a full afternoon and do whatever you would normally want to do. As a younger child, I hear the word work and party, and that's a conflict. A work party those words don't go together until you go to a church event where people have come to work and there's 2 or 3 in charge and there's a list and here's what I'll do and here's what I'll do. And you look back and you've done a tremendous amount of work in 3 hours, spreading the load, letting people feel a part. And you were just talking up a mile a minute. You were smiling the whole time. It wasn't hard at all. You wouldn't even call it work. It was a party. It was a work party. You ate together and went home. But this is describing that type of thing. When there's someone with you, it changes your outlook when there's things to do. In this case, 2 are better than 1 because there's a good return for your work. It's not just the reality that 2 can get more done, but there's an inherent value in 2 people working together, sharing a load. If one falls down, his friend can help him up. And that's just a principle that can apply at work or any other place, can it? It's kind of nice to have somebody there to help you out. I'm not wanting to make light of the commercial because there's a truism attached to it, but we've been seeing for probably 10 or 15 years a commercial from time to time of an elderly woman who's fallen down in her apartment and she can't get up. And the picture in that commercial is, I've fallen and I can't get up, and so you need to order this device that you wear around your neck, and if you fall, it will send a signal, or you can reach up around your neck and push it, but it will alert someone to the need of help, and you will be taken care of. It's a real circumstance. And it's wonderful to have somebody who is a friend that when you fall down, they are there to help you get up. But pity the man or woman who falls and has no one to help them up. And that's a truism no matter what the situation. This is walking. This is someone along the highway. If 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can 1 keep warm alone? Now you can. I know someone that she has the most loving, kind, patient, huggy husband that you could ever imagine, and yet she demands, when she can get it, that she have an electric blanket. She needs an electric blanket. And so 2 are together. You can help each other. There's even a warmth element implied here. This person, not Terry, this person wants an electric blanket to boot. I just figured out in the last week or 2, I'm slow, I'll admit it. I'm fully dressed when it's time to go to bed. We have 2 or 3 covers during the winter. We had 4 or 5 in China, and we had on double layers of clothes just to be warm. But when I take off clothes and hop into bed, I'm always so cold. I just figured out last week why. I've really not ever understood it before. Have you figured it out? Why it's always cold no matter what? When you get in bed at night Of course, it's during the winter you notice it. What's your body temperature? Mine's about 95.6. It's a couple of degrees lower. As we get older, I think it lowers too, but 98.6 is normal. What do we have most of our houses set on during the winter? 68 to 72, guessing ours is 69. There is no way a 96-degree body can get in covers that are 69 or 70 degrees. We're not feeling some cold initially, right? You know, I just figured that out last week. I can relax because now I know I'm going to get warmer pretty quick. But you just, and then fairly quickly your body temperature takes over. I'm just slow, I'll admit it. But there's something about having two people. There's a benefit to having someone in order to help you keep warm. How can one keep warm alone? And of course, that's encouraging the togetherness. It's lifting up marriage. It's pointing out the hardship for those who've lost spouses. Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. Walking along the highway, if you're all alone, it's going to be difficult if someone should try to overtake you. But two people, two can defend themselves. Sometimes there's no defense necessary because they're looking for the single individual that they can very quickly overpower, if you will. Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. And how do you see that? From a physical standpoint, think of the strength of a rope. With 3 strands woven together, isn't it stronger than a strand of 2? It would have to be, just by the mere makeup of it. Everything I've ever known about rope is that it pulls against itself at some point. Those 3 strands are pulling against themselves when you're pulling the rope. And that's why there's certain knots, my son Gregory in the Coast Guard tells you, that are better for tying in some settings because they pull against themselves and provide a tremendous amount of strength. Well, it's true in life too. A strand of 2 can defend themselves. A strand of 3 is not easily broken. In a broader sense, it speaks to community. Don't try to go life alone. Let others help you. Don't refuse help. It's not a shameful thing to accept someone's offer to help. And sometimes that offer of help gives them an opportunity to grow in their servanthood, to help others. A strand of 3 is not easily broken. Now, I heard many years ago at a nightly devotional when I was in college, someone brought this out and says, think about you and that person and God. They put God in that strand of 3. This doesn't. Solomon's not putting God in here. But you can, and it wasn't an inappropriate comment. You and someone and God is everything. Everything can be met with strength and victory. But a strand of 3. Better or poor, verse 13. He takes us, the 4th place, into a palace. We're going to talk about a young person who becomes a king. Solomon goes into the palace. Better a poor but wise youth than an old but foolish king who no longer knows how to take warning or to be admonished, some of the translators say. Now, If you're young but foolish, the inference here is that you're willing to learn and take other people's advice. It would be better to be a wise youth. The implication is you are wise even though you're young, than to assume that it's always better for the older person. Well, what if the older person no longer knows how to take admonition? He's no longer teachable. He'll no longer follow good advice. Who would you rather have? Solomon says, I would want someone who's wise, who cares about their youth, than someone who isn't willing to take good advice. I don't care about how old they are. And it's not age that would cause that to occur. He's not inferring that at all. The youth may come from prison to the kingship, or he may have been born in poverty within his kingship. I saw that all who lived and walked under the sun followed the youth. Didn't matter how he got there, why were they willing to follow him? He may have come from prison, he may have come out of poverty, but he's in that position. And why was everyone willing to follow him? Because he was wise. They saw the wisdom that he possessed, and they were willing to follow him, no matter what his background. And he gives two pretty diverse, exaggerated backgrounds. He was wise. I saw that all who lived and walked under the sun followed the youth, the king's successor. There was no end to all the people who were there before them. But those who came later were not pleased with the successor. That too is vanity, a chasing after the wind. He seems to be telling us that sometimes people will follow you, but it's always, it could be temporary. At some point later, they won't be pleased with this successor, the young, wise person. Do any of these hit home? Courtroom, highway, workplace, independent man, the hardworking man, the palace. What's he telling us about life? There's some bad with the good. And even when there's bad, we are benefited by having someone there with us. And a court of three is even better. I'm the second of 9 children. And we used to have some bullies down the street when we were growing up. And we made it very, very clear, as a family of 7 at the time, 2 would come along later. We may laugh at, we may make fun of, we may even, well, you fill in the blank, toward brother or sister. But don't you dare say one thing to them or about them. They're family. You're not. And there's that mentality in most communities among families. We may say things to them or laugh about them, but don't you dare. There's something about that stream, that string, that strand of more than 1 or 2 people. When my oldest sister, who's younger, but she's the oldest of 3, came home from Freed-Hardeman, and after a year, her 3 older brothers decided that we were going to take John. By the way, he's my brother-in-law now for, I think, 30 plus years. Actually more than that, because the youngest is almost 40, I think. Tell me if I'm wrong, if any of you are watching this. Sometimes they are. But we decided we were going to take John on the back porch, and we just walked around him. The 3 of us. All of us older and bigger, but not much, bigger. And just imagine, we just walked around this guy who dared to come home as if he was in love with our sister. And we made it very clear without saying many words, you better be good to her. You better take care of her. We didn't have to say much, and we laughed at it, but we were also saying something. And you'll see it many times in television shows. Don't you ever hurt her. Don't you ever mistreat her, or you're going to pay. I'm coming after you. But there's this mentality, not in an abusive way, but there's strength in numbers. And strength in numbers of people who care about each other and who will come and help each other, and all of the above. We did get to chapter 5. Good. We'll go quickly to the first couple of verses. He goes to worship. And I choose not to take forever saying all that could be said in this book. Is not necessary, because I'm sort of ready to get to the God part, usually. I'm ready to get to the God part. But verse 3 of chapter 4, better. Verse 6, better, one handful. Verse 9, better, two better than one. 3 better statements. And then the fourth one, verse 13. So 4 better statements kind of get us lifted out of the difficult negativism. But then he says in chapter 5, guard your steps when you go to the house of God. Go near to listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools who do not know that they do wrong. The psalmist said the fool says in his heart there's no God. But there's also a fool who will go into the place of worship and not listen to what God is saying to him. And that's why I don't mind that we got here tonight. It can segue or dovetail our comments about hungering and thirsting after righteousness. Do we plan to get there? Do we look forward to getting there? Are we going with an open heart and mind to get there? Are we watching the clock? Are we just reveling in that feast from God's Word? Well, don't be the fool who goes to the house of God, but he doesn't offer or regain what's there. Guard your steps and go ready to listen. Do not be quick, verse 2, do not be quick with your mouth. Do not be hasty in your heart to utter anything before God. Do you know people who sometimes when they're being talked to by leadership, authority, the boss, parents, that they, but they always have an answer. They're always ready to refute what's being said. They're always defensive. Can you imagine someone going into the house of God and acknowledging, having some awareness that God is talking to you, and you say, but, what does Solomon say? Go in there and be quiet and listen. Don't be hasty with your mouth or your heart. Don't let your emotions be stirred. Don't get mad at the preacher, teacher, whomever it is that's trying to help you. And it's from God. Remember, that's what it is. Don't be quick with your mouth. Don't be hasty in your heart to utter anything before God. No buts, no maybes. God is in heaven and you are on earth. So let your words be few. God's in heaven, you're on earth. Let your words be few. As a dream comes when there are many cares, so the speech of a fool when there are many words. My mom, bless her heart, my mom would tell us when we were going through times of our life and being somewhat successful, it's not that we were doing what I'm about to share, but she just didn't want us to do it. And her admonition to us was, you don't have to tell anybody how great you are. They will know it. You don't have to tell them. They'll know it. In other words, don't brag on yourself. Don't bring up your successes. Don't, however it would be applied. Sometimes when we open our mouth, we come out to be the fool that they would not have known otherwise, is what it's suggesting. Just keep your mouth shut and they'll think you're wise. If you open it, they'll see that you're not. It's good advice, especially before God. And to try to refute God and show your foolishness of one who says there is no God, putting two concepts together. So just have little to say. Go in ready to hear and listen. Don't let it stir your emotions to cause you to speak up or not listen. And these are verses I've looked at here, I think on a Wednesday night. When you make a vow to God, do not delay in fulfilling it. He has no pleasure in fools. If you write in your Bible, I've circled the word fool in verse 3 and the fool in verse 4. Fulfill your vow. It is better not to vow than to make a vow and not fulfill it. Do not let your mouth lead you into sin. Do not protest to the temple messenger, my vow was a mistake. When you make a vow to God, you can't suggest even to a godly person, I didn't really mean it. I don't know what I was promising to do. You can't do that. When you tell God you'll do something, He expects you to honor that commitment. And I shared a time where you are in a community, certainly hasn't happened in our world lately with the pandemic, but someone that's had a religious past, not so much present, and they tell the local hospital person, can you call a minister, pastor, whatever they would call him, priest, and have them come visit. And I've been called many times, and I go and I am ready to share this verse. Because usually we say, God, if you'll let me get well, I'll start reading the Bible more. If you promise God that, He expects you to honor it. God, if you'll help me to get well, I will start going to church again. He expects you to honor it. Don't make a promise to God and think that He's not listening and He doesn't expect honor. And you can't say later, I didn't really mean it, or I didn't know what I was saying. Don't make a promise to God because He expects you to honor it. And why should God be angry at what you say and destroy the work of your hands? God has a right to be angry at someone who makes a vow and doesn't honor it. Much dreaming and many words are meaningless. Therefore, the conclusion to this little section, stand in awe of God. Give God His place. Give God your allegiance. Honor Him when you make a promise. You can't talk yourself out of it. He's suggesting that if you are there in a hospital room and you're dreaming, you have these premonitions, you have these ideas, and you wake up and you finally say, I need you to call a minister. Well, don't let it be a dream of fools. Don't let it be the words of a fool who would wake from that setting and would do what's about to be described. Honor your commitments to God. And most people don't. Most people in hospitals go home and they say, well, it's a good thing I got good medicine. That was sure a good, healthy, friendly nurse. Look at what they did, no credit going to God, and it gives them forgiveness, if you will, to not honor the promise they made to God, who got them well, who educated and sent the medical people. take that one in and be careful. The promises you make to God. God is an awesome God, and we need to stand in awe of Him. We have the right to go in His presence. We have the right to make all kinds of commitments and promises, and He hears them. And He honors the request and thanksgivings and petitions and all the other too. That's the benefit. But we need to be careful what we're saying and doing and thinking. He hears those things. Thank you.